The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Defion Productions podcast. I am your host, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin, Don. This is the week in Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the Fed decision that occurred yesterday. We're going to talk about how that's affected crypto markets, Bitcoin markets, traditional markets. We're going to talk about the dollar. The dollar has been on, the Dixie has been on a decline for most of this year. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We are going to talk about Michael Saylor, some of the speeches that he's made the last couple of days. We got some Jack Mallers stuff that we're going to show, a cool Jack Mallers video. We have some sovereign nation news about how they're using Bitcoin. We got a chart here that we're going to show in regards to Bitcoin ownership and how it's dispersed in 2025. A lot of things, that and more. We're going to start, of course, obviously, always with the charts. Bitcoin currently here at 3:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, sitting at 117,784 a coin. Total market cap of Bitcoin, $2.346 trillion. Can look down the top 10. You got Ethereum up, you got XRP up. Basically everything is either up or flat at this point after yesterday's expected Fed decision. Looking at the total market cap of crypto, we're sitting at 3.76 trillion. Bitcoin dominance at 57.5%, ETH dominance 14%, in the Fear and Greed Index sitting at a neutral 47, which we've kind of been at for the last couple of weeks. We did have some volatility yesterday when we got the decision, and then while Paul was speaking, Bitcoin's price went into the 114s and then stabilized in the 115s and has been slowly grinding its way up the last 20 hours or so, as well as the rest of the crypto market. Dominance still remains high. We're still, fairly close to that 60% of Bitcoin dominance. So all the altcoin season people are, they got to wait a little bit longer before they get their altcoin season, if they ever get it at all. We got some news over here on the side too. JP Morgan has named the fair price of Bitcoin at 126,000. So according to JP Morgan, the current fair value of Bitcoin sits almost 10,000 over what the actual price is now, showing that it's a bargain to pick up Bitcoin at 117. And we'll jump into this here because it's always good to go back and remind ourselves what we got going on here with this Federal Reserve, who controls so much when they speak and do things. The U.S. dollar declined since the 1913 creation of the Federal Reserve. A dollar's worth of purchasing power since 1913. 1913 is the creation of the Federal Reserve, the creatures from Jekyll Island. And you can take a look here and see way back here when it was all the buying power that the U.S. dollar had, all the way down to where we sit today, not being able to buy too much. There's another really good chart that that's floating around X, floating around social media, showing a stack of money, and then next to it, gold equivalent from 1913 and today. How much cash it took to buy gold in 1913, and the stacks of cash that it takes to buy gold today in 2025. The dollar is. We'll look at this next chart right here. The dollar is down about 10% on the year. Rich, when you go to the market to buy goods and services, is it a surprising stat to look at this chart here and see the Dixie basically falling off a cliff and seeing that the dollar is buying less and less for individuals and families? Since this chart here is from the beginning of the year, so from January 1st on, the dollar is down 10%. Yet inflation is only at 3%. So something doesn't make sense. Something's off if they're telling us inflation is 3%, yet the dollar has lost 10% buying power value since the outset of the year. What are your thoughts on that statistic?
Well, I can say that I do all the shopping. I do the grocery shopping. I gas up the cars. You can't give me one thing that is lower. Gas was down a little bit during the summertime, but it always is. That's a cyclical thing. It's always lower in the summer. Gas is back where it was. My dollar, I follow the dollar. I do, and everybody was like, one of the things like consumer confidence in is everything is down. So because of that, you see prices going up. Like not a pound of coffee because you can't buy a pound of coffee anymore. I buy coffee every week, a bag of coffee every week, and it is up $3 since before the election. So I mean, it wasn't low, but I'm not blaming anyone in particular. But I'm just saying everything I buy is up. My grocery bill is up more. And I've literally changed my buying ways. I've started to buy different types of products. I don't buy brand names anymore. I'm shifting to non-brands to try to save some money. But even with that,
store brands, like the store brand products?
I'll buy store brand, or I'll go to a Dollar General type store to buy something from them. So, and just to save money, because I did notice for the last this quarter, I was spending a lot more money. Summer, not the first quarter of the year, the second quarter of the year, from April through, was that June? Those 3 months, and now we're into the third quarter now. We're already into the third quarter.
Almost fourth. End of this month will be the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we'll be into the fourth quarter, and everything is up. Everything is. Okay, eggs went down, whatever. But everything else is up. Groceries produce specifically is up 30%.
I listen to Spaces every day, and I talk about that fact. And there was a good Spaces yesterday where they were talking about, again, things that we talk about in this podcast all the time, about how the top 10% is not affected at all by inflation, the dropping of the dollar, buying power, but the bottom 50% of the population, which most of us fall into, are significantly affected. And they said something that, like, I know anybody that's ever struggled with money and anybody that's ever been super, super tight on, money coming in and money going out could relate to. They're like, there's 50% of the country's living in the which bill do I pay this month and which bill do I carry over to the next month. Yep. And I was like, wow, like I bet you a lot of people really resonate with that, because if you're on a fixed, you're getting X amount of dollars per month because you're on a salary or whatever job that you have, and you're just getting what you get, but the prices of everything that you buy are going up. You have to start making some very tough decisions. You can't not eat. You can't not, drink fluids because you need to survive. You got to start looking at, like, what are we, like, what bills are we going to go late on to make sure that we keep the lights on, or make sure that we can buy the groceries, or make sure, like, and that's not with all this other stuff. Like, we're not going to go down the political rabbit hole, but we will acknowledge that the last 7 days have been very volatile. And I'm not talking about markets. I'm just talking about sentiment, like straight political sentiment in this country has been very volatile. People have been on social media espousing their opinions on many different things, a lot of disagreement. And I feel like we're distracted talking about things like that. Not that it's not important or is important or any of that. That's not the point I'm trying to make. But if the viral tweets and the viral messages or whatever you see on your algorithm were with the two charts I just showed you, the buying power of the United States dollar losing 10%, 50% of the country living, in a, do I pay this month, the bill this month or the bill next month? Like, if we were getting indoctrinated with that sort of stuff, I think people would start to make some different decisions that might affect things in a positive manner. I don't know the word that is appropriate. Maybe you do. I don't have a thesaurus in front of me where, it's almost like you will things into existence. So there's things that are in it. Like we can't control the dollar too much. Like there's certain things we can do, but we really can't. Like the people that are in control all those types of things. We have control of what's happening in our individual lives. But if you're feeding your brain certain things, then your brain will start to seek out and change behaviors that will make parts of your life better. But instead,
so there was a term for it, and you can. so one of the things is the cell phone stuff. So you're on your cell phone and something you don't like comes up, so you block it. So then you start putting things on I don't want to see, stuff like this, and everybody does this. And when it does it, it gradually, because that's the way algorithms work, move you towards the content you will be targeted with will be much more in support of the things you want. So you end up with this destiny that you're only going to see information that supports your political, your financial, your religious opinions, whatever it is. Social media, even like things that you like. If I post things about that I like the movie Superman, tomorrow more than likely I will get additional posts about superhero type movies. That it's just the way the computers are run. And because we have, and I posted this on my Facebook account today, we only really have 6 media companies controlling just about everything we see. And I'm not, you can throw the internet guys in there, your Facebook guys and stuff, Elon Musk, you can throw that in there too. So maybe it's 8 companies, but you ultimately have everything that you're subjected to is only coming from a very small group of people. And because of that, we tend to seek out and tend to just get reinforced, whether it's on purpose or by algorithms, information which tells us we're right. And that is a problem.
Confirmation bias?
Was that?
Confirmation bias?
Confirmation bias is definitely a thing. And I used to teach that in media. I didn't use that term, but I would say, like, if you're going to end up seeing things you want to see. Like,
we're stuck in feedback loops. That's basically
I'm not a
what
conspiracy guy. I don't want to get into who killed whoever, but I definitely think that if I'm in political office and I'm getting reports, GDP's down, the dollar's down, consumer confidence is down, China's not buying soybeans, any of those things that are going to make me look bad as an elected official, I'm going to lean in and talk about the controversy that everybody else is talking about, because let's talk about that. Because instead of talking about what my job is about, and that is, and I think that's why so many people are talking about the thing we're not going to talk about, because they'd rather say, yeah, whether side you're on, it doesn't matter. Yeah, because it's not about, but what about the fact I can't pay my bills? What about the fact that my kid can't afford to get an apartment because rents is so damn high? Like, whatever. Like, it's all a distraction. These things are distraction. So we don't talk about what you talk about every single week, I think I tell everybody, man, I love your podcast. I love producing it because, man, you and other people have opened my eyes about shit that I thought was fact. Sorry, man, I got way too passionate.
No, I like where you went with that, because as you were talking, I'm thinking, like, I feel like in the last week, while there has been a lot of, very passionate disagreements online in one way or the other, there have been a couple of instances where I feel like both sides, whatever side you sit on, kind of like found a spot to like lean into and agree on.
Agreed.
And it's pockets of that. I mean, it's obviously way more disagreeing than it is, but almost I feel like more recently there's been things that have happened where both sides have been like, yeah, that's effed up. And the most recent thing that I can think of was, and I guess she walked back her comments. Somebody texted me today and told me, but what Pam Bondi said, and again, I'm not paraphrasing, this is what she said, and this is fact. She basically said that we will target people that say hate speech and come after you and prosecute you. That's a First Amendment that's already been litigated by the Supreme Court. Like, that's not a is that okay or not? That's like literally been litigated by the Supreme Court, and you cannot go after hate speech. Like, you can't prosecute. There's a difference between violent speech and hate speech. Like, I can say, Rich, I can't stand you. You're an asshole. F you. Like, that's not hate speech. That's just like we don't get along. And I'm saying things. I'm not threatening you. I'm not like to think that if you were the minority party and I was the majority party, and you and for some reason I could get people to come after you because of the response that you had back to me, is not a place that we need to be, floating in or swimming in, or whatever the the correct wording is. And I know for myself, I have a pretty vast amount of different political viewpoints on my feed, and I gotta say 95% of people were like, yeah, that's not right. You can't, that's not a thing. Like both sides were, but like and people on the left were like, I'm glad people on the right are like jumping up and saying that like you can't do that. You know what I mean?
That is, and I wish more people would say, like, understand that, like, anytime any speech is censored, it's going to affect you. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, because it's only a matter of time before the other guy's in charge. And again, like, there are consequences when you say things, and that's it. What it's going to be interesting in is the amount of people that have been fired because they posted something on social media, because they posted something they got fired. And it's going to be interesting how because a lot of these people are going to sue, and lawyers love it. Because they love this type of stuff, because that's where they're going to make a ton of money, and a lot of it's going to have to get fought out in courts. And and I think a lot of these organizations are going to lose, because unless they were saying something like you said, violent speech, if they just said hate speech, I just don't know if it's going to hold up in the court test in a court. Because the average guy who's sitting on a jury is going to be like, yeah, like he said something or she said something, but I don't know if they should have lost their job for that. Maybe you could have suspended them. Maybe you could have called them in for a meeting. But like, to fire someone for something they said that was maybe hateful but not violent, I think those are things that are going to get. There's going to be a lot of court cases about this stuff.
I guess you walked it back. I know, and to be fair, like, a couple days after somebody passes away, and people in that administration had personal relationships with him, so I can understand a little bit why people would be passionate and say things, and maybe after the fact, cool down and realize that that probably wasn't the best way to relay whatever she really wanted to say, which
right.
wouldn't have been a constitutional obstruction. But like the bigger conversation, we've never shied. I know the political climate is really scary right now, but we've never really shied away. The thing I do want to kind of talk about, because like this is media. Like I have people that watch this. I have subscribers and followers on my channels, and I'm giving information. So like on some level, like I'm independent media on a very small level, right? So
yeah, sure.
I do not like censoring people because they say something that offends you or that you take to be opposite of a viewpoint that you have. I've been talking to my brother the last couple of weeks. Shout out to my brother, Mike, to like make sure that I'm not treading in places that are dangerous with all the shit going on. And I want to have these conversations to have a point that's very coherent and try not to be too controversial. Just give a very eloquent, thought out like position. And we talked about like the Jimmy Kimmel thing. And me and you actually talked about this before we went live. And I think it's relevant to the whole money conversation and Bitcoin and everything too. We can kind of like land the plane in why that all kind of ties together. For me, I did not like seeing that so quickly he was put. I don't know if he's fired or the show's. I don't know
they
what.
They said he is suspended indefinitely.
That's
what they said.
Clip that I saw, and again, apparently he may have said something else besides this clip, but I can't find whatever it is people are saying that it was. I looked, and the only clip I keep saying is basically him showing a clip of Trump and Trump's horrendous response, in my opinion, of being asked about Charlie. He started talking about construction sites, which was like, what? And then Kimmel making a comment of like, I guess that's one of the stages of grief. And I think Kimmel is not funny at all. I don't watch his stuff, and I don't really think he's that funny, but I actually laughed at that part because I thought it was kind of witty. Like Trump had a ridiculous response to something.
I agree.
They sound bit it.
I don't like the show. I've never found him funny. he was on that show with Adam Carolla like 25 years ago, and I always thought that show was awful, and I just couldn't believe how Jimmy Kimmel grew in popularity. I've never found him funny.
And his platform has been a lot of politics.
Yes.
He's been very political.
Yeah. He's
For
not a far left guy.
For-
He's not at all.
for us to get, I don't want to say us because I'm not identifying with a political party anymore. I'm completely, after all the last
Myself
6-7 months, I'm apolitical. So I want to change that stance. But for the right to like get into power, and now the first instance that Kimmel or anybody that they, like, I guess, you know, kind of happened to Colbert too in a different kind of way, not this specific way, but to use this as an opportunity to shut down this guy's voice. And I got pissed when I saw that, because for me in 2019, and then this is getting back to the money conversation, 2019, I had my Twitter account suspended on me. And the reason that I got suspended is because everyone's favorite senator, who I can't stand, tweeted some absolute nonsense, Elizabeth Warren, and I quote tweeted it and hammered her in a not so nice way with a couple expletives of how I felt about what she was saying that was completely false. The next day, my account was taken from me. And now we now know, after the Twitter files in 23 or 24, whenever Elon took it over, that there were liberals that were in charge, that anything that came off super conservative was handled in that manner. So I experienced it on a small level. It was a small account, but like, I got my Twitter taken away, and I didn't go on X for a little bit until I finally created a new account. But to be banned off of Twitter for basically correcting nonsense that Elizabeth Warren was saying, and saying some things that were probably come off as being a dick, but it is what it is. So we complained that the right was like canceling, or whatever the case may be, or I'm sorry, the left was canceling and shutting things down. And now, like, you're no better when you get into power, that people start saying things, or no, not start, but continue to say things and do things that you don't like, that goes against your political ideology, and the first chance you get, you do the exact same thing.
Well, and that is why I respect that some, people on the right as well as people on the left have been very clear about, again, most of them are like, whether you like this person or that person, you're silencing voices. And then at some point, who gets to decide which voices are silent? And that is a problem, because eventually they will find the guy, the gal, the show, the studio, whatever it is that you like. And the interesting thing about all this is that to me, it's all about the fair market. And so if you put out something that does not have a lot of taste, okay, whatever it might be, something that the average person finds to be tasteless, like it was in bad taste, that company that owns that media has to decide whether they should suspend that person, they should remove that content, or fire that person. And what they've done now is, in this case, is that it used to be they would kind of let the fair market decide. But what's happening now is it's political pressure, because we are down to this minimum number of media companies that are being sued by the government and or are donating to members of parties. So this connection is that we're getting less and less voices that are willing to say things, because the boss or the biggest boss of some big corporation that controls all the media is going to shut it down, instead of letting the market decide whether it should still be left on the air or not. And I think things like late night television are dying anyway, because nobody watches that stuff anymore.
That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make, and you're making it better than me. I think that nobody watches Kimmel. Nobody watches any of these shows. They get their news and their information online. Those shows are basically dead men walking shows. Like, the market has been deciding. People are not watching. To have to like have this reaction where we got to get this guy off the air now. And you know what you may do? You know what the unintended consequence of this could end up being, honestly, and I don't think people just think this shit through. If you look at Tucker Carlson and you look at Megyn Kelly, right? Staples on television 10 years ago.
Yes.
They're making way more money and they have a much larger following than either one of them ever had when they were on network TV.
Right.
And I think you saw Don Lemon try to do it, but Don Lemon's content is trash. And again, the market decides. Like, the market will decide if your content is good enough, you will get monetized and you'll make money. Don Lemon sucks. His content is shit. His personality's blah. So, like, nobody really watches his shit.
Well, let's do a non-political example, which will prove it. Who did ESPN hire for their day? Pat McAfee. Why?
Yeah.
Because he was the most popular sports guy streaming podcast.
Yeah.
And they were like, you know what? ESPN's like, no one watches us anymore.
And prototypically, ESPN is left leaning, and Pat McAfee, I would gather, is on the right.
Sure, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I don't think he's
that was a
right.
very smart business decision by ESPN.
And it was smart, and it was McAfee was able to turn essentially, because he was the most. I don't know if he was. There's a couple other guys that were up there too, Lombardi. There was another guy, but but McAfee was the most well known. And ESPN, to their credit, to their business model, said, you know what, we need to have our stuff more look like what people are watching nowadays. So rather than having these studio type things, these very professional $100,000 studios, we're just going to have a guy. We're going to bring in this guy who has a more organic following. He's not and his ratings. I think his ratings have gone up obviously because it's accessibility, but his numbers were his daily podcast views, as well as the other show that he was doing, the one that he wasn't in. There was a show after him that was just his buddies. And those shows were like destroying most of your daytime broadcasts on ESPN.
I can give you a couple other examples too. Look at Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith has like a $20 million contract with ESPN. He's got his own podcast. Yep. He goes on his own podcast and says all the shit he can't say on ESPN. Right. Shannon Smith, Club Shay Shay.
He can talk for an hour instead of every 4 minutes having to go to a commercial.
He's killing two markets. Like, he's on the ESPN doing his thing and he's making his own stuff. Shannon Sharp is basically excommunicated, but he's still got Club Shay Shay and he's still able to make money there. And like Tucker, the same thing. Tucker's got a huge following. Candace Owens, huge following. Like, these people, there's a lane.
And whether you like Tucker or not, what's great about Tucker now is that he can say whatever he wants because he's not getting called into a Fox meeting or whatever meeting. We work to CNN first. And hey, man, this was too far. Like, listen to this, and we're letting you go.
Say whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants now, and he's true. He's truly the free market. So he can come out and say that what he said about Trump the other day, like that what they're using the Charlie Kirk thing for, and he can get shit for it, and he doesn't care because I think he's decided he knows what he wants his brand to be. He's not, whether you like him or not, I think he has pivoted towards what he really thinks, I think, are his core beliefs. I don't think he's playing it to the crowd anymore. He wants to build the following for the crowd.
Tucker Carlson is extremely smart. His father was a CIA agent. Like, the acumen and the IQ of that dude, you don't have to agree with all of his politics, and I don't always agree with all of his politics, but I've watched enough interviews, and he's had a couple of finance guys on there recently that have been really, really good. He asks really good questions, and he thinks through his thoughts very, very well, and that's why Tucker has been able to make it on, like, he got fired. Like, think about this. He got canned from a network job making millions of dollars a year. For most people, for a lot of people, that would be like career, like, shattering. And he's making more, I would gather, doing it on his own on YouTube and all the other platforms of the sponsors that he has, getting straight every dollar from those sponsors now, rather than getting just money from Fox than he was before. So to bring it back to Jimmy Kimmel, again, the market will decide, but like, the unintended consequence, if you get these guys on the left who, and it's crazy because like the media, the old school media is very liberal, and these guys are just like still hanging out in this like prehistoric, like dinosaur level of media where they just haven't figured it out for whatever reason that they could go do it on their own and do much better. But maybe it's because they suck. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is. But if one of these guys from the left just says, you know what, I'm done with ABC, I'm done with whatever station they're on, and just jumps on their own platform and has success there, it may be an unintended consequence of, you know, the right trying to get all these people quote unquote canceled, and then they jump on these other platforms and get a bigger voice.
Well, and I mean, you know, like in the case of Fox had that big lawsuit, and they had to find people to be the scapegoat. So they had that. I think that was the same thing. It was the same thing. Like ABC got sued by a different administration for something they said. So then, like, that's whatever. And so, you know, you've got these things, and they sacrifice somebody. And the funny thing about, like, I think, you know, Tucker, because he's the smartest. And he you know, he always kind of had his own way of doing things. Like, he was able to build this brand, and now he's the company, as opposed to he just worked for a company. So whatever Fox was making, and here's your little, you know, little token that we'll give you. We're making all the real money. Now it's like it's his. Now he can take care of the people he wants to the way he does. And it was funny because there's a lot, and this is a funny comparison, and it's really completely out of left field kind of thing I'm coming from, right field, I guess. Either one, it's like people were complaining that about like Taylor Swift, and she did the exact same thing. She went and bought back her tapes, her masters, her stuff, because she's like, you know what? It's mine. I want it to be my legacy. I want to give it to my kids, my grandkids, versus some guy running a corporation giving it my artistic, my work to his grandchildren, you know, great grandchildren. And it's really, think about it, to me, the same way you are a Bitcoin guy, because it's about the legacy of the money you're making. You don't want it to be in some Roth or whatever, some guy that's collecting fees every year and all that stuff, where you want it to be your legacy. And I think Tucker's doing the same thing. Like, that's his brand. Like, it's what he's making, investing his time and energy in. And I like that there are these artists, these contributors that are doing their own thing with their money instead of waiting for some nice corporation to give them a cut of the piece of the pie.
You know, thinking this through too, like CNBC has like basically a monopoly on like financial news. It's like for network TV, cable TV, whatever you call it. CNBC is kind of the go-to. That's where everybody goes to get their financial news. And I don't think you'll ever see a station pop up that'll be like a Bitcoin station where it's just covering Bitcoin or even crypto to a lesser extent.
It's really not on traditional media.
No, because I think like if you want to get good, unbiased, well, you know, you're going to get biased too, of course, because we're Bitcoiners and we have Bitcoin bias, but like good reporting, good news, good content, you're going to go to X, you're going to go to YouTube, and you're going to watch those type of channels. Another example would be Kitco News. David Lynn, who did a lot of interviews for Kitco News. Right. He left Kitco News, he quit, and he created his own YouTube channel, and he's got like 100,000 followers, and he's got running ads on there. He's probably making comparable or maybe more than he was making as a interviewer working for Kitco, that organization, doing his own thing on his own YouTube channel. And it's like, if you have a brand, like that's why you're seeing a lot of athletes, right? Or anybody, not even just athletes, any sort of celebrities, and the Kelsey brothers, you know, right, would be another example. Anybody with a name, you can go to a platform and you can have ownership of the platform yourself. You can sell ads and get, you know, obviously you're going to have to give a cut to YouTube or to X or whatever platform you're doing it on, but it's much less of a cut than you're giving to the, yes.
You're your own corporation. You don't have to pay for all the other stuff that you're not paying for, you know, like, because you're not trying to have like a whole building where you got 500, like it's a small business, but it's a privately owned business. So you're not trading on the market, you know, all that stuff. So yes, you can direct your own brand. And that's what a lot of like, and I think the funny thing about that is I can watch a podcaster, an independent guy, and I follow, I have some Twitch ones that I follow. And they'll get, you know, 60 to 70,000 viewers a day. They've got the stuff that you're paying to see, the paid content, but their overhead is the room that they stream from every day, a producer or two, some advertising here and there if they want to buy ads. They got upgrade equipment, but like their 80% of whatever they make is theirs. They're not getting whatever their salary is, and still 70% of the revenue is going back to the host company.
This channel, this YouTube channel that we're live on right now, is not yet monetized. We haven't met the requirements, but this podcast is 3 years old. And I can tell you, in the 3 years of this podcast, I've had 2 opportunities to take sponsorships. People wanted to give us a little bit of money or give us tokens. This is back when me and Troy were doing the podcast. And both times I declined taking the coins or taking the money or taking anything. And again, it would have been an easy, especially being that like I come out of pocket for this podcast. I'm not making money on YouTube. On a couple other platforms, I make a little bit of money to offset, but like I could have made enough money to be in a spot where maybe it even would have grew the channel more, and I could have got the followers or whatever those like I could have taken a route that, and again, I'm saying this for 2 reasons. The first reason is it's an opportunity in a lane that I could have grew if I wanted to and believed in those products. That would have been an opportunity. And number 2, the more important part, it gave me as owner of this channel an opportunity to hold an ethical ground to say that I don't believe in either of these 2 things. I'm not going to take some shitcoin and put my name behind some bullshit shitcoin or a product that I don't use, don't believe in, don't like, even if they're going to give me money that's going to cover all my expenses and even put a little bit in my pocket. I have that ability and opportunity here. If I worked for Fox News or I worked for, Fox Business or CNN, I may have to read an ad of something that I fundamentally disagree with, but I would have no choice because I'm not the corporation.
Yeah,
I'm not.
It's in your contract.
It's in my contract, and
your show might be have an advertiser that you don't like, pharmaceutical company that you don't like, or whatever it might be. Like so, yeah, like you. That's why I think some of these firings, some of them work out quite well, and some of them choose to walk away from things. So, I think some of them walk away, like Conan O'Brien walked away from his TBS show, TNT show whatever he was, it was one of the Turner channels. And I guarantee you, I don't even have to look it up. He's making more money now with the independent stuff that he does. He's getting more viewership out of it. And he still makes money off of the content that he made before. So, like, he probably said, you know what? I don't have to work 5 days a week. I have enough money now. Now I can do what I want, and I'll probably end up making more money in the long term.
Side note, I've reached out a couple of times to Free Cash, his Twitter account, to try to let them know that I'm a huge user of that.
So that one you
would I would take money from Free Cash because I'm getting Bitcoin off that site constantly, and I use that site constantly, and I've shown that I've used that site. So if anybody from Free Cash, or this hits the algorithm, and anybody wants to at Free Cash, I will take money from Free Cash. I will put their whatever they want to do. They want to give me a code for people to sign up for, or whatever the case may be. Freecash.com. I unpaid sponsorship of that right now.
Yeah, you're already marketing. They just got a free commercial.
Yeah, they got a free commercial for the 20-something people that are watching this right now. While we were filming, Bitcoin Magazine tweeted, just in, Poland's Warsaw Stock Exchange lists their first ETF, giving investors exposure to Bitcoin through the Bitcoin Beta ETF. So we got Poland jumping in on the game here, which is good. And here's the actual Bitcoin Magazine article, Rich, if you want to throw this up on the screen real quick. That actually shows the U.S. dollar has lost over 10% of its value this year. So the math doesn't really math if you're going to try to tell me that inflation is at 3%, yet the denominator that we use to value all of our assets has dropped 10%. So if the denominator that we're valuing our assets in is 10% less than it was at the beginning of the year, we've lost 10% of our buying power. How's that not calculated into inflation? You're telling me I'm only losing 3%, but my denominator dollar is losing 10%. The math doesn't math. Bitcoin Archive. Bitcoin is having its best September ever so far. Every time September closes green, October and November pump even higher. We can take a look if I click on this here. we take a look at where we're at in 2025. We had a good run from April until July. We were up 14% in April, 10.99, basically 11 in May, 2.4 in June, 8.13 in July. August, we took a drop, down 6.49%, and up so far in September, 7.19%. And if we take a look at every other time from 2015 on, 2015, we had a green September, and then we followed that with a 33% October, 19% November. The next year, 6% September, 14 and 5. If you look at 23, we had a 3.9, then a 28.5, and an 8.81 in November. Last year, we had a 7.29 in September. October was 10. November was 37. So if you take a look, we've had at least, we had 33 there, 15 there, 28 there, 37. We had some pretty big numbers when September ends green. So that's a pretty good track record to look at. If we're going to end September green, we gotta, and it kind of goes along with the 4-year cycle. So it's not, rocket science here. It's not, groundbreaking breaking news here. A lot of people are kind of expecting things to, go off here at this point in time of where we are after the halvening, after the, how the election cycle and the epochs go. But, it's good to look and, the past doesn't always, repeat, but it rhymes. So, you got these patterns here. And if we see the same sort of pattern, does that take us to 150, maybe 200 by the end of the year? Who knows? We'll see. The next thing I want to show, because I love showing Jack Mahler's videos because he makes such dynamite content. I'm going to show this Jack Mahler's video really quick. Fiat exported our jobs, destroyed the middle class, and tore apart America's social fabric. We now live in two economies, asset owners and everyone else. Bitcoin is the first and only asset. They can't gatekeep the ticket out for everyone. Let's take a look at Jack and what he's got to say here.
We're living in two separate economies, and the middle and lower class economy are getting demolished, they're getting crushed, they need liquidity, they need help. We shouldn't look at America as this one big economy anymore. This fiat regime, this fiat era has decimated the middle class in the United States of America. You either own assets and are protected and are benefiting from debasement and destruction of the currency, or you don't. Let me explain it to you guys this way. If the third floor is the top floor, the penthouse floor, the elite floor, and the first floor is non-asset holders, paycheck to paycheck, and there is no second floor. If there's no second floor, the third floor people can't get to the first floor. Elite asset holders can't become poor, and the first floor people can't get to the third floor. They're working as hard as they can. They're getting degrees. They're working 2 jobs. They're not getting close to getting to the third floor. That's a very destructive society. That's a pain society. That's 2 different economies. Before Bitcoin, none of us on the first floor could own anything that the third floor owned. Now we get Bitcoin. No one can dilute our share in the 21 million. Fuck that. That middle to lower class, there's no longer a middle class. If you don't have the right assets, you're the lower class. It doesn't matter anymore. You have to get yourself some Bitcoin. It's the only ticket out that is sold to all of us.
Jack makes such good content. Whoever's editing his videos, I'm jealous. They do very, very well. But he's just very, very smart. He drives the point home, for especially thank God for Bitcoin for your kid and my kids' generation. Even taking myself out of the equation and people our age out of the equation. As bad as things are right now for us that are in the working class now and are going, at least Bitcoin exists as an opportunity for this generation of young kids that do the work, understand, and have an opportunity to own an asset that you can't dilute, like Jack said, that only has a finite supply, that has been going up constantly since inception. Obviously, it has its ups and downs, but over a logarithmic pattern, going from under $1 to, maxing out at 124 so far, sitting currently at almost 118. Thank God that something like that exists. Can you imagine if Bitcoin wasn't created with all of the mess that we like that world. Thank God we don't live in that world right now. And I kind of want to, drive that point home. I think about that often. I think about like, what if Satoshi in 2008 at the precipice of the great financial crisis didn't come up with this concept, didn't create Bitcoin? We would literally, I mean, I guess I'd still be in gold and silver and I'd be, somewhat happy in some respects that I was at least making some money in gold and silver, but we still don't even know if there's a gold in Fort Knox. We don't know the total market cap, how much gold and silver actually exists. Like, it's okay, but it's not perfect money like Bitcoin is. And it's good to know that something exists, is so finite, is taking hold of traditional finance and gives the younger generation opportunity. If you're 20 years old and you're going to save for the next 50 years, you can save in an asset like Bitcoin instead of, throwing your money in the stock market and not having access to it for, 40 years because they lock it up and hold it ransom and, tax the shit out of it anyways when you go to take it. So that long rant just to say that thank God that we have something like Bitcoin to go towards. You like those videos when I show them. What did you think of that one?
That was a pretty good one. As an editor, it's well made. I wish I could edit that good. It's good. And the guy's not wrong. Like, he's saying what he's right. Like, it's just too much shit. Like, it's just like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. It's just I'm getting to the point where I don't know. Just people. I don't know. It's getting to that point where I'm just getting frustrated because people just don't. They don't get it. They just don't get it. We've talked about this before. I was with somebody yesterday, and I said something about the U.S. dollar, whatever it was, and I said, I guess what she didn't know.
That we got off the gold standard in 1971?
She thought that the American dollar was backed by gold.
It's not surprising.
I mean, this is not an old person. This person is significantly younger than me. I mean, they're not even, they were born after 1973, and they think that we're still on the gold standard. Like, what? Like, I mean, no offense to the career I used to have. Like, don't we teach this in school? Like, I feel like that'd be something you would talk about in school at some point. Some teacher would bring it up, I don't know. I just think, like, people are just very naive and they just don't understand. Like, and it's all manipulated anyway. I mean.
While no recent national polls exist, a 2019 survey found that nearly 1/3 of Americans mistakenly believe the U.S. dollar is still backed by gold.
Oh, I think it's higher than that.
The survey by Genesis Mining revealed that 29.3% of respondents thought the dollar was tied to gold, reflecting a broader lack of financial literacy. That is aberrant. Like,
I think it's higher than that. I don't believe. I feel like that's low. I feel like if you did it now, you would find that more people. It's higher than that. I wonder how the question was asked. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know I don't know which side I fall on that. I mean, 30%, a third of the population seems fair. Like, I can see that. And the only reason I'm kind of like biased because of the fact that, like, I feel like you can just go on X. Well, maybe because my algorithm is curated in such a way, like, I see stuff about that all the time. But I guess if you're just like immersed in politics or you're immersed in sports and you don't really have like finance, FinTwit on, your feed, you're not going to see it. So maybe they don't, and people's head are buried in the sand and they don't realize it. I mean, it goes back to what I always say, like, before, like, people are like, well, how much Bitcoin should I buy? Or like, how do I get involved in Bitcoin and crypto? And they always ask that stupid question. And it's just like, man, if you don't take the time to study and learn about the system that you operate in currently and understand all of its flaws, understand the misunderstandings, the things that you don't understand that you thought you understood. If you don't take that route first, learning about Bitcoin is just going to be a waste of time, in my opinion, because you're going to look at it as a trade. You're going to look at it as something that you're going to buy for X and sell for Y, and you're probably going to do both of those things at the wrong time, and it's going to be a net negative for you. You don't buy you Bitcoin is the opt-out, as we showed with the Jack Mahler's video. Like, you have to, it's almost, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but it's almost that you're better off not owning it with no knowledge than you are owning it. No, that's not the way I want to say it. I want to say
I think I know what you're trying to say.
yeah.
You're
It's
trying to say you're
it's better off not owning it
realizing
with
you have
knowledge.
to own it rather than owning it and managing it wrong.
Yeah, it's better off that you start to understand it and don't own it yet than own it and have no idea what it is or why it exists. Right. Because if you have the knowledge and you don't own it yet, you probably eventually will. But if you don't understand it and you own it, you're just going to end up selling it anyways, and you're better off just putting your money in the spider or treasuries or whatever dumb shit people invest their money in nowadays. So I don't know, like that's 30% not understanding or unknowing that we're not on the gold standard. I guess 2019, what's that, 6 years ago? You think it's higher, not lower?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's higher. I mean, surveys are interesting, especially because it's not something we ask very much about. Like I just feel like the more people probably the question. I would like to see how the question was asked.
Fair.
What is the U.S. dollar backed? I think if the question was just like, are we still in the gold standard, or is the question like, what backs the U.S. dollar? And I feel like that wasn't the question, because I think most people wouldn't even be able to answer that question at all. Like if you ask the average person, what is the U.S. dollar backed by? I think a lot of people would struggle to answer that question, and that it's basically in God we trust.
Yeah, fair. They wouldn't know that.
It's on the dollar bill.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be the only the faith in the U.S. government is what that implies.
Some people would probably answer military-industrial complex, I would imagine. Some people.
Yeah, I think you'd get some
consider-
really interesting answers. Like, and that's the problem for me, and that's why I say to people all the time, like, and you and I have talked about this, our involvement in military actions has increased significantly since the 1970s. And that's because we can just print money, because there's no true consequences to inflation and or the debt if you're a billionaire, or if your company is a $1 billion company. You don't have to be the billionaire. You can just work for the $1 billion company. You don't have to be a billionaire. Like, you're just the CEO who makes $20,000 a minute or something like that.
Next article here, we got the Laos government will mine Bitcoin to monetize its surplus hydropower and tackle soaring debt. Nations joining the Bitcoin race. I've talked about, the city that we're in, Niagara Falls, and, using the power authority and the excess energy here to do something similar to take that excess hydropower, mine Bitcoin, put it on the balance sheet of the city, get us out of debt. We've talked about that before, but that, these countries are doing it. Not much more to say about that. Want to beat a dead horse. We'll end with this here. Let me make it a little bit bigger so we can take a look at who owns Bitcoin in 2025. Total 21 million. You can see that in the middle. Circulating supply, currently 19.9 of that 21 million has been mined. So currently, 0.5% is owned by Bitcoin mining companies. 1.27% owned by DeFi. 2% owned by private companies. Countries and governments right now, 2.46%. Public companies, which is, the Bitcoin treasury stuff that we're talking about, 4.45%, a big portion of that owned by Strategy. Satoshi, the creator, 5.22% of that. The amount that still has to be mined, still another 5.23%. We're only about 95% of the way through. The ETFs, all the inflows and stuff like that, 7.07% by the ETFs. And retail holdings, that's individual holders. That's not mining, DeFi, private, governments and countries, public companies like Strategy, Satoshi, that hasn't been mined in ETFs. 71.75% of the total 21 million is held by the people, which is how it should be. And that's going to change as it has been changing. I think we were probably closer to 80% a couple of years ago. But long-term holders that hold thousands of coins or tens of thousands of coins have been selling some, and they're getting gobbled up over here. So there's only so many. There's only 5.23% that still has to be mined in the next 115 years. And there's a big amount of this 71% that's probably never going to move. People like me, they're just going to hold. So you can kind of see as time goes on, the supply is going to be squeezed. If this thing keeps going up in price and we keep looking at, it being concentrated in these areas, where are the coins going to come from? You can't print more. It's not like a stock. It's not like the dollar. It's not like any other asset where when the demand goes up, you can make more supply, which is how businesses work, right? Demand goes up, increase the supply. That's what you do. That's what we've done with dollars, do with stocks, stock splits, creating more shares, adding more equity. Like, you can't do that with Bitcoin. It can't be effed with. That's the beauty of it. Only 21 million. And I would be doing everything I could to be in that estimated retail holdings, that 71.75%. Get as much as you can because there's only so many. Before we end, anything you want to add, Rich?
No, I think you had a lot of good stuff today.
We really didn't talk about it too much, but we kind of alluded to it. Yesterday, the Fed cut 25 basis points. They cut interest rates by 25 basis points and blamed a weaker labor market. Immediately after, the U.S. dollar fell to its weakest level since February of 22. That's not good, obviously. You can kind of look at, the Dixie over here and what's going on with the dollar. They're trying to get those rates down. They're not really falling yet, which is a problem for the Trump administration that's trying to get these rates to be lower. We're going to be in unprecedented times here. Well, maybe not unprecedented. Maybe it's not the right word to say, but we're going to drop rates again in October. I don't know what's going to happen after in December, if it's going to drop or not. But what I can say is the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, is done in May, which is less than a year away. And President Trump will be the person that nominates the next Fed chair. And what we know about President Trump is he wants you to kiss the ring. So I'm sure whoever he is going to be, interviewing for that role is going to be some semblance of a conversation of, hey, when I ask you to lower rates, what are you going to do? Are you going to lower rates? And I'm going to guess that even if they don't necessarily do it, they're going to tell him that they're going to do it. And markets are going to respond as such whenever he makes his pick. They're going to assume that whoever he, knights as that next Fed chair is probably going to be somebody that's going to be lowering rates, providing liquidity to markets, printing money, and asset prices will continue to run. And the best, most pristine ones like Bitcoin will do their thing. That's all we got for this week. As always, 104 times now. Don't trust, verify. Please follow. Bottom of the screen. Thanks for watching. Peace.